Good afternoon, class. We're going to start Chapter 2 today. The first thing we're going to talk about is solving equations with one step. We have to understand what it is we're trying to do, and in this situation, in the problem, what we're trying to do here is isolate a variable. And to isolate a variable, we just want to get it by itself. So in this situation, x equals 12, x is isolated. Down here, 5x equals 60, x is not isolated. So we're going to learn how we can get that by itself. And we're going to introduce some properties to do that. First property we're going to talk about is the addition property of equality. It says if you have two things that are equal, a equals b, if we add c or something to a, then we have to add that c to the b. Same thing's true with the subtraction property. If we subtract something from two equal things, we're going to have to subtract it from the other side. Now, the reason why we're doing that is that we're going to be dealing with solving or isolating variables. And to do that, we need to recognize what the operation is and then undo it. So in this case, subtraction is the operation. And to undo subtraction, we want to add. So we're going to add 7 to both sides. Now, adding 7 over here on this side just gets rid of the number and leaves you with n equals 19. Down here, we have to identify that our operation is adding, and to undo adding, we subtract. And we're going to subtract the 8 that's being added. That gets rid of that, and we're left with the n equals 1. So here's an example identifying that the addition is the operation going on. We're going to use the subtraction property of equality and subtract 2 from both sides. So, as we discussed in Chapter 1, to subtract from a negative number, since these are basically the same sign, we're just going to add them together and get a negative 8. So we check our answer. Instead of y, we want y to be negative 8. So we put negative 8 in. Negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6, and that is the solution. So there's also two properties for multiplication and division. The multiplication property says if you have two things equal, if you multiply one side by a variable or a number, you have to multiply the other side. The division property is the same. We're going to see division written as a fraction often. So this fraction really represents division. So when we divide this side by c, we have to divide this side by c. In our example over here, we have to undo operations. So we have to identify what operation this fraction bar is, and that's to divide. So to undo division, we're going to multiply. So we're going to multiply by the same number we're dividing by. So we multiply both sides by 5. That drops this out. The idea here is to get rid of that. So we end up with x equals 50. 10 times 5. Down here, the operation, 6 times x, multiplication. To undo multiplication, we want to divide. So we divide by 6 here. So we divide this by 6. Dividing by 6 drops the 6 there, and we get 5. So our example down here has us multiplying by 15. So we're going to divide by 15 to get our answer. We get x equals. If we actually take our calculator and divide this, we get a decimal. It's 0.6 repeating. Well, we don't want decimals. We want to leave it as a fraction. So take the division and just write the two numbers that you're dividing as a fraction and reduce it. So we reduce the division, and we're going to end up with 2/3. So we don't want the decimal. We want the fraction 2/3. So you go down here and you check your answer. 2/3 times 15. So we're going to have to actually multiply this out. 15 times 2 is 30. 3 times 1 is 3. 30 divided by 3 is 10. So 2/3 is the correct answer. We also deal with division. And as I said earlier, a fraction bar represents division. So to solve for this problem, we're going to actually take and multiply by 3. That drops the 3 from this side. We get r by itself. And 19 times 3 is 57. So you should check your answer. let me get rid of that. 19 equals 57 over 3, which equals 19, so it checks. Now, when we're multiplying by fractions, we can divide by a fraction. So to solve for this, we're going to divide by 3/4. But if you remember back in chapter 1, to divide by a fraction is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So we're going to take 12, and instead of divide by 3/4, we're going to multiply by 4/3. So we have to put that over 1. The 3/4 over here will drop, and we'll get x. So we're going to end up with 48 over 3. So x, 48 divided by 3 is 16. So that's the answer to that one. Now we're going to take a word problem, and we're going to make our own equation. An online DVD rental company offers gift certificates that you can use to purchase rental plans. So we're going to pull out some important information out of this. You have a gift certificate for $30. So that's a very important part of this problem. We know that $30 is the gift certificate amount. The plan you select costs $5 per month. So we want to know, with this $30, how many of these, how many months can we actually have a plan? So how many months tells us that our variable needs to represent months. So we're going to choose M to be the number of months. The $5 is an important part because we're going to take that $5 and multiply by the number of months so we can see how many $30 we can get in there. So to solve for this equation, we're going to divide by 5 and get M equals 6. So now we're going to deal with some section 2.2. We're going to solve two-step equations. And when we're solving two-step equations, we're going to use what we talked about before with the one-step equations. We're going to identify the operations. But before we do that, let's talk about what the operations are. Here we have an equation. 2x plus 3 equals 15. Well, 2x just means 2 times x, and then plus 3 equals 15. Well, we need to undo the operations just like we did in the previous section. But to do that, we need to go in the reverse order of operations. So our order of operations in this problem is we would first multiply and then add. That's normal order of operations. To solve for the equation, we're going to do the reverse. We're going to first undo the addition by subtraction, and then we're going to undo the multiplication by division. So if we take this equation to solve for this, 2x plus 3 equals 15, we're going to subtract 3 first. That drops the 3 out. Don't forget to subtract it. Subtraction property of equality, do it to both sides. And then divide by 2. X equals 6. You can check your answer by putting 6 right here for x and see if we got the right answer. So here, let's identify the operations. We're subtracting and we're dividing. So the reverse order would tell us we're going to add 3 first and get 8. And then to undo division, we want to multiply. So we will drop the 2, multiply both sides. We get 16 equals t. Take and check your answer by putting 16 in here for t to get to your check. The word problem we're going to deal with here is you are making a bulletin board to advertise a community service opportunity in your town. You plan to use 1/4, so there's something important, of a sheet of construction paper for each ad and 4 full sheets for the title banner. So they're telling us we have 18 total sheets to work with. We want to know how many ads there are. So we're going to have the variable represent the ads. The variable always comes from the question. How many ads tells us that this is our variable. So in the problem, we need to go and identify where we saw the ad. Well, right here is where we saw the add. So that tells us that that variable has to go with the 1/4. So number of sheets for the add, 1/4 of a sheet is a fraction of 1/4. So the A goes with that, 1/4 for each add. Plus, we're going to add, because we're having additional sheets, 4 sheets for the banner. Is just means equals. And then our total number of sheets was 18. They told us that. So we get 1/4 for the add plus the 4 total for the banner equals 18. So we can solve by subtracting 4, left with 1/4 equals 14. Now, as we discussed in the couple examples ago, to solve for this, we need to divide by 1/4 or multiply by the reciprocal. And the reciprocal of 1/4 is 4/1. So we just need to take 14 and multiply by 4 to get 56. So that tells us with 18 sheets, we can get 56 adds. So bring your notes to class. We'll go through some examples in class if you still have questions. And don't forget to answer the questions after the video.